Greetings, thanks for joining us once again. Today I decided to do a story on the outage between Crowdstrike and Microsoft. This is a very, very important outage, and therefore I wanted to do a show about it. And I think you'll find that the ideas presented would be helpful to you in your process of managing it, even though you didn't realize that you would have to. This is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Thanks for joining us once again. If this is your first time, welcome. If you're a repeat visitor, welcome back. Today, despite having the truck with us, we're actually in a cyber mood for the day. So I wanted to process-wise review what's going on here. Pardon me if we do notes to expedite. As you know, there's a major outage of Microsoft and Crowdstrike. The challenge right now is that the fix is not simple. At a basic level, a piece of software is written. Once complete, the software is under constant attack and testing. The testing that is done is called penetration testing, or pen testing for short. If there is found to be a vulnerability to attack, there's a patch written, or a piece of software, to address this vulnerability. Let us say the patch work, then we secure all software will work as planned. So the question that pops up is, what happens if the patch for the software solution does not work as planned? A new patch has to be written and installed after being tested. A good hacker would identify the patch and try to attack there. Microsoft is an interesting company. A friend from Hewlett-Packard once said to me that HP offered to fix all Microsoft vulnerability so customers could rely on the software better. The answer from Microsoft to Hewlett-Packard was, no thank you. And the reason was, Microsoft explained that the difficulty of managing Microsoft software was a competitive advantage so that customers could not go to other vendors because so much of their IT budget was consumed by Microsoft. So what happens basically is that Microsoft would create their software, and a company like CrowdStrike would provide cybersecurity for that software by getting to know it well and then identifying ways to manage the vulnerabilities of that software beyond the patch stage I just described. So if CrowdStrike and Microsoft work closely on all Microsoft upgrades, we're good. So in this case, it's being said that CrowdStrike saw the Microsoft work that was being done, and then they went ahead and did an upgrade of their software to address what Microsoft is doing with their software. So it seems that the problem right now is that the CrowdStrike upgrade is not working properly with the Microsoft upgrade. And this is an interesting problem because solving it is not that simple. One method one could use is simply, for example, tear all the software off of both machines or both companies' products, go back to what they were doing before, prior to the upgrade, and do that. Now, why don't they want to do that? The reason I want to do that is that obviously it's time-consuming, it's expensive, but there's also the problem of there are reasons why both set of softwares were upgraded, typically to make the software work better together and be more secure. So there is no easy solution, and the easier solution, like a patch, the faster the recovery. So my sense of things is that this is a problem, it's an expensive problem, and it won't be solved easily. The big challenge right now, in my mind, is something called malware that's associated with all this. So what happens is on a daily basis around the globe, there are hackers working on hacking into particularly Microsoft. Whoever the big software companies are, get the most effort from the hackers to attack. And in this case, as you know, Microsoft is one of the biggest companies in the world, and you can see how broad their customer base is based on the outages that we're seeing. So what I wanted to review here is the fact that there is something called malware or etc. Malware does a great job of sort of finding vulnerabilities and exploiting those vulnerabilities. So the way things work in the cybersecurity world is that the folks who get the most attacks are attached to things like money, banks, financial institutions, in this case airlines as well. But in general, this is said to be a software issue between the two companies, but this is kind of like Christmas for a great hacker. And the reason is that what will often be done with malware is to hide a piece of malware as these companies are trying to recover their systems, because their cybersecurity guards will be down or they'll be down currently because they're trying to bring the entire system back up and get everything rolling properly. So what you can end up with is almost like saying you have a house and the front door is open, and when that front door is open, there are small critters that will run in the house and hide, and then after you close the door, you don't know what's in the house currently. So there's a lot of time associated with, okay, we were vulnerable for a while. How do we address those vulnerabilities to make sure that our customers are not crushed by it? So I think over the next few days, the systems in general will come back up, but I do think that once they do come up, they'll be riddled with malware from really great hackers who understand the problem that's happening. So the final part of this that I wanted to review with you is particularly if you have a banking relationship relative to your apps, this is a great time to modify your password. And the reason you want to do that is because what those hackers are able to find is what the passwords were and drain those accounts. So over the next month or two, you may want to try to maintain not specific numbers, but a general number of what your balances were, because the bank will reimburse you if in fact the malware that's put onto your machines or put into these banks results in your account being drained. The other thing I would recommend is take a look at something called administrator access to your computers at home. So there are different tiers of access. One is administrator, and then there's a regular access. Administrator lets you control what will be allowed onto your machine. And then the final tip I'd like to make today is something called 14 numbers, letters, and symbols minimum for what you're doing. Why? Because the more numbers, letters, and symbols, the longer it would take for somebody to hack what your password is. So remember, when you're doing that new password, also don't repeat any numbers, letters, or symbols, because that reduces the difficulty of hacking that number. So in general, I expect this hack that occurred to take a short period of time to maybe get the Microsoft system up. But I do think that we end up with systems that are vulnerable to attack, and therefore Crowdstrike is going to have to get back up as well, and they have to do it in a way that doesn't crash the Microsoft systems. So while this chaos is going on, I believe there are a lot of people who are going to become vulnerable to attacks because Crowdstrike can't be fully up on the Microsoft systems, because there's so much commerce that's been disrupted. Yes, there will be issues with credit cards and all that stuff stolen from the airlines in this process, but the bigger problem is not that. It's all those bank accounts that get emptied as part of this process. So, long-winded statement to say, this is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Today, we'll call it FCP cybersecurity, because I'm finishing a master's in cybersecurity. I think the area is fascinating, and I really think that you should take some time to learn about cybersecurity in general, not necessarily get a master's in it, because systems are become more interrelated, and therefore it's a good idea to have some idea what's going on. At any rate, I want to thank you for joining us. This is Greg for FCP Cybersecurity. Tschüss, au revoir, lehitro, hoda, hafezda, sicheni. Thanks once again for joining us. Have a great day, and bye for now. The one other question mark that's going on, I guess, for GM and for Tesla and others is for high density cities like in New York or Chicago and other places, will there be sort of large numbers of charging spaces for people that live in condos and don't have garages into which they park their cars? And how is that all going to work? The answer is that clearly there's going to be a need to have excellent charging in different places that allow consumers to not have range anxiety in the process. As you may recall, this past winter, there was a situation that popped up where Tesla's charging facilities went down, and there were a large number of folks during the coldest part of the winter trying to recharge their Tesla unsuccessfully. So we're really hopeful that whole thing is cleaned up. The final component of the whole charging discussion is, as you know, Elon initially fired all the folks associated with maintaining and establish new charging facilities. He then, a few days later, sort of did it about face, announced that Tesla would spend about $500 million this year, both maintaining and expanding the charging network. According to one of the now former Tesla engineers, he was saying that yes, you need new facilities to expand the network to address the new inbound customers. You also need a move. Tesla's in the mid-90s in terms of uptime. And Elon has talked about trying to get to 100% uptime, and that also needs investment of both people and equipment. It was also mentioned. So the next thing I wanted to review is that I actually ran into a GM owner of a $100,000 Cadillac that was still suffering from the COVID-related nightmare within the last few months. As you know, GM and others have decided to cancel their chip orders, and that way they wouldn't have to carry inventory when no cars were being built and sold during COVID. But when they tried to go back and reignite those chip orders, they ended up in a bad situation where all those orders were now going to other manufacturers, mostly of video games, but just manufacturers of other things that needed those chips. So GM is still in a position now where they're offering cars for sale and also offering for those consumers to get the chips associated, for example, with their navigation, advanced navigation system installed once they're available. And one answer to this is the fact that those moving feet expand the number of places and uses one could use the robot in, especially upstairs and other things of that sort. So yes, this would probably work better in the sort of large factory environment that is currently the case. But if we're going to get penetration of it in huge numbers of locations, it's probably a good idea to actually execute in the manner that Elon has chosen to do and Tesla has chosen to do. So this is the conclusion of our part of the show where we're reviewing whether Bob Lutz was right. Was it true that the large numbers of huge OEMs were going to come in and wipe Tesla out? And the answer is, if you're still about 50% market share, and you have some of the largest, oldest auto companies in the world under their attack, it's a reflection of how good your company is and how good your products are. So congratulations to both Elon, as well as all concerned. This ends our formal discussion of the Bob Lutz tech. Clearly, the blow away Elon plan is not going to happen, and we look forward to more successful Tesla in the space. We next move on to our health tips. Our health tip for today is from an internal medicine doc who recommended that once a year, once every 18 months, you should actually go to a place called Quest or another entity and have your blood drawn so that you can do a careful review of everything going on there in case there might be some health issues to anticipate that is also an optimal one relative to solving. So I hope you found the health tips useful. This is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Thanks once again for joining us. Just a while people put down my face. What is my